Monday Morning Matters.
Perspectives
From Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you're listening to DurianASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today at our Monday Morning Matters, where we discuss issues pertaining to Southeast Asia. The first issue of today, of course, we are going to talk about the labor movement in the ASEAN economic community. Is it a freer flow of labor as what being claimed? Or is it freer flow for certain sectors of labors? Anyway, we have Marina, Christina. She's the project coordinator of ASETUC. It's an acronym for ASEAN Services Employees Trade Union Council. So hi, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Arlene.
So you're based in Jakarta, right?
I'm based in Kuala Lumpur in Bangsar.
No.
Yeah.
But
I'm
you're
Indonesian.
You're Indonesian.
Yeah, yeah.
So, tell us more about ASETUC. What is it exactly, and what does it do to employees?
Okay. ASETUC, like you say, is an acronym for ASEAN Services Employees Trade Union Council. It is a regional council of trade union in services sector. For example, in banking, commerce, construction, nursing services, and etc. We have members and partners in 9 countries in ASEAN. And
Only 9 countries?
9 countries, yes.
Not 10?
No, not yet. Because basically in Brunei, they're quite unique. They don't really have a trade union there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they handle their own people internally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else that ASETUC is different from other form of trade union on the ASEAN level? Because I kind of found out there's another website which is similar to ASETUC, but actually it's called ASEAN-TUC, which is the ASEAN Trade Union Council.
Okay, this is quite. I will go to quite technical explanation. So for ATUC or ASEAN Trade Union Council, they are consisted of confederation, national confederation. But for ASEAN Services Employees Trade Union Council, we are consisted of sectoral, which is in service sector, national federation. So not confederation, but federation.
I see. What's the difference between federation and confederation? Besides, there's the word con there.
Okay. Confederation meaning it covers all sectors. So for one national trade union, they cover all sectors. But that's confederation. But for federation, they only cover particular sectors. Like, for example, confederation, it has banking sector there, commerce sector there, construction sector there. But for federation, it's only banking in the national level, it's only commerce in the national level, and yeah, something like that.
So the areas of ASETUC is wider, are you saying that?
No, we are more specific.
More specific.
Services sector.
Services sector.
Yeah.
I see. Can you share us more about what kind of activity and projects that you do, or things that you cover in your research and publication?
Okay. ASETUC was actually published on 2007, basically to consolidate a response to fast-moving ASEAN integration. So you see, we were established to engage on ASEAN issues. So we specifically was established for this. So our approach is social dialogue, meaning trade union want to engage government and employer associations in ASEAN to have partnership with us, with trade unions. So when we are in the partnership together, we can work together to make the best response to the impacts brought by the ASEAN integration. So we make effort to make a dialogue with them. So our activities will be meetings, and then also we are capacitating our members on the ASEAN issues and on the social dialogue issues. So basically we have trainings,
Mm-hmm.
and then we also have we're trying to enter the ASEAN bodies meeting.
ASEAN bodies.
Yeah, ASEAN
Uh-huh.
bodies. We are trying to be involved in the meeting.
Mm.
Yeah, like for example, we have this ASEAN OSH net. So it's an ASEAN bodies to discuss about occupational safety and health. So we're trying to make it more tripartite, meaning trade union also can be there and employers also can be there. So we're trying to engage this platform, ASEAN bodies platforms.
Mm.
Yeah. So in terms of publication, we have a lot actually.
I can sense that.
Yeah. Yeah, the recent publication was compilation of law, labor law in ASEAN, because we would like a more harmonized labor law in ASEAN. And then the second recent one is the research on the rising on non-standard employment. We use the word non-standard employment, but basically it's outsourcing and contract.
So if it's more towards the informal sector, I suppose.
Yeah, informal. No, in a form that it's not permanent workers anymore.
Mhm.
So the contract changes from permanent to outsourcing and then to contract. It's not necessarily informal like in the home industries or something like that, but it can be in factory or it can be in the enterprise. But the
concept of the work itself or
Yeah.
the nature of the work is somehow
not permanent
not
anymore.
non-permanent
Yes.
and non-contract. It is more contract based, I guess.
Yes, contract based and then outsourcing.
Mm.
Outsourcing meaning that you understand.
Yeah. So anyway, before we jump, deeper into the idea of Employment Act, as well as the migrant workers in in Southeast Asia, the history of trade union itself, how far back, the workers have been organizing themselves in Southeast Asia,
Okay, you mean in the ASEAN level?
in the ASEAN level.
In the ASEAN level. Well, I think ASEAN Trade Union Council or ATUC, they have been existing since long time ago. I'm not sure how long, but it's quite a long time ago. But for us, it was starting on the 2007. It was actually triggered by the fast-moving ASEAN integration. If you remember, 2007 was when ASEAN decided to accelerate their integration to be 2015. So we thought, okay, we need to do something about this. We need to respond and make a trade union response. Yeah. So,
That's
yeah.
how you started ASETUC.
Yes.
But in terms of prior to that, were there any laws, regulation regarding on the labor mobility, labor movement, labor rights on the ASEAN scale?
On the ASEAN, I think I can say no, but on the labor mobility, they have what they call mutual recognition agreement. This has been discussed and adopted, I think, like since 2009, 2007. They have been discussing about this mutual recognition agreement. It's basically to facilitate labor mobility. Yeah, labor, but they call it skilled labor. Yeah.
I see. Interesting. In a way that I would like to know, with the upcoming ASEAN Economic Community, ever since you guys have started the ASETUC, how much involvement you either are allowed in or you already put into it in terms of trying to integrate labor protection or labor mobility within the ASEAN Economic Community Framework? Because as far as I know, it only covers skilled workers.
Yeah, well, on 2007 also there's the ASEAN, the long name is ASEAN Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers. It was 2007. But I think MRAs was discussed way back than 2007. So in MRAs, they are signed by the Ministry of Economies of ASEAN. So there's no social clause, there's no labor dimension to it, according to us. I mean, there's no involvement of trade union of workers in that negotiation. While for the ASEAN Declaration on the Protection and the Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers, they actually tried to find or to collect input from the civil society, but NGOs playing more prominent role in this matter. And then now they are actually have this AFML or ASEAN Forum on Migrant Labor. So it's basically a dialogue forum for government, employer association, and then workers, trade union, and CSOs. So you see, we are being involved when they want us to be involved. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's very up to the government. And after this ASEAN Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers, they're actually drafting an ASEAN instrument. This supposedly more legally binding, but until now, there's no draft being discussed. I mean, no disclosure on the draft that being discussed. No, like, you know, they ask our inputs or something like that. So it's just up to them whether they want us to be involved or not. Yeah.
So it's up to their own personality and prerogative to whether they want you or they do not want you.
Yes, there's no like, you know, like institutionalized that they need to have dialogue with us.
So it depends on the whoever that is on the leadership role in ASEAN, I suppose. If there's no like clear institution that actually provide you the space to debate and to provide inputs, especially on the policy inputs, I suppose.
Leadership? What do you mean by leadership? Like,
as in like whoever that is, you know, holding the position in the area regarding on economic, then if they think that they want to involve the trade union, they would involve. If they think that it's not necessary, then it's not necessary.
Yeah, but I mean, what is necessary and what is not? Because all are affected. I mean, workers are affected by all their declaration, their agreements. Even MRAs were signed by the Ministry of Economies, but it's actually really affected workers, even though it's skilled labor. But you know, I think we need to give input because we will be affected. But there's no social dimension, no labor dimension.
We will discuss more on that. We'll take one short break, and when we return, we'll talk more about skilled labor and unskilled labor or in the ASEAN Economic Community context.
Monday Morning Matters
Perspectives
from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you are listening to DurianASEAN, of course the voice of discovery and sharing in our Monday Morning Matters, where we have currently Marina, Christina, project coordinator of ASETUC, is ASEAN Services Employees Trade Union Council. That's a mouthful there.
A mouthful, yeah.
So anyway, to continue our discussion, when leaders in Southeast Asia talk about AEC, do they really know what does it mean? Because it seems to be very broad and very vague, and I'm not sure whether it covers only on the business entry towards towards country within Southeast Asia, or does it even cover the employment side of it?
Yeah, I think AEC, we can say it's an elite project, meaning it's like very government oriented, government initiated, and it's very not inclusive of the people. But actually what AEC means is trade liberalization within ASEAN. So
But wouldn't it be a great thing to have trade liberalization or economic liberalization within Southeast Asia, meaning that you can buy things or produce things that you don't necessarily have it in the past?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we can look at it like briefly, it really benefit consumer, which is also the people. For example, okay, I will give you an example of like what it means by free movement of investment, of capital, of goods, of services across the ASEAN region. For example, free movement of goods. So I think what AEC means is now garment manufacturer from Indonesia can compete head to head with garment manufacturers in Malaysia, because when the Malaysia imported garment product from Indonesia, there will be no barriers there, meaning the tax, there will be no such thing. So the price can compete directly head to head. But of course, in Indonesia, labor is cheap, cheaper than Malaysia. And then there's a lot of resources cheaper than Malaysia. Yes, consumer can be so happy, and I think the Indonesian also produce good quality of garment. So in terms of quality, it's the same, but the price is cheaper. Of course, it's beneficial for the people. They can buy cheaper good, but with good quality as well. But can you imagine what will happen to the manufacturer in Malaysia? They will close down. And then who will suffer from it? The people again, the workers.
But that's the basic principle of free market and competition. Like you will always have a loser,
yes,
and a
exactly.
winner.
Exactly. The loser is the people who doesn't have access to capital. The loser is the people who try to struggle to live from paycheck to paycheck. This is the loser.
But if you were to remove the liberalization part, that means this is the argument of some free marketeers. They would say that business would be the same, meaning that there will be little innovation. So it would force the Malaysian market to be more innovative in order for them to sell products that would appeal to people who want to buy it. So they need to, step up their game so that, they can sell better garments than Indonesian garments.
Okay. that's an interesting position. But what we are trying to say is, yes, maybe you in this liberalization era, in this neoliberalism ruling, of course, sometimes we cannot avoid this. But what we are trying to say is, if you don't protect the people interests, and you're only thinking about the benefit,
the profits,
yes, then actually it is the people who buy your product, right? It is the people.
So it's a race to the bottom. In fact, it's not going to really make more money to the people. It will actually lessen the pocket of the people and concentrate the money towards those that can earn more of it, which is the business maker, the capitalists.
Yeah, of course, race to the bottom will be inevitable. the manufacturer, the people who has money will find cheap labor with good quality. Yeah, and then it's like very easy for them to be mobile around ASEAN. This
But
is what is going to happen.
But I think I like your point on cheap labor because you mention it again and again on
Yeah.
why they can be competitive.
Yeah.
So, in a way that when companies become competitive, meaning that one of the key area that usually they would focus on is cheap labor, and I think one of the reason why there is cheap labor, number one, I think, is the lack of standardization within Southeast Asia on what is the price of a minimum
What
wage
is living wage?
or living wage in a way, and besides that, I think they also neglect like the protection of the workers, social protection of workers when they are in the workplace. Maybe they have very little safety safety net in terms of wages or in terms of other areas that would benefit workers or working environment.
Exactly, that is why I think, and it can cause unsustainable integration because people, when they are not happy, they will be angry, and there will be, like demonstration every day, and then it will be
a cost to the government.
Exactly, and also the owner, the capital owner, because they need to close down, blah blah blah. And then that is exactly what we are trying to say. You need trade union to talk. You need the partnership with trade union to see how to respond to this, all these all these bad impacts brought by the trade liberalization. We don't say that, no way we want to be like communist or socialist. Maybe it's not like that, but we want to work together with you, and then to find ways, to find solutions to tackle all this trade liberalization impact to the people. Yeah, so living wage, and then providing decent work. So it's like harmonized decent work in all ASEAN countries. So we can also prevent race to the bottom, because you cannot go to Vietnam if you need to provide the same amount of living wage or the same amount of social protection that you need to spend, for example, in Indonesia, because now Indonesia and Vietnam are competing to provide cheap labor. So if you have the same living wage, if you have the same cost, then you won't go to go to the bottom, and then the bottom, and then there's no limit. You can just go to the bottom. Maybe after Vietnam, you go to Myanmar because it's cheaper. Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you will have another French Revolution happening in Southeast
Yeah.
Asia.
What we don't want. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we'll take another short break. When we return, we will address the current challenges and root causes of the labor protection and labor mobility in Southeast Asia.
Monday Morning Matters
Perspectives
from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene. You're back again with me, and of course with Marina, Christina, Project Coordinator of ASETUC or ASEAN Services Employees Trade Union Council. So early on, we discussed a lot about AEC, about trade unions, the development of it. But I want to know more about the current challenges of trade unions or workers today, because I think, if you want to use the theory of Karl Marx, in the past, people focus more on those working in manufacturing sector or in agriculture sector, in sector where you can easily mobilize people. But in today's ASEAN, it's totally different. You have the services sector, the financial sector. Different sector have different social status, different thinking, and different working environment. So what is the current challenges of trade unions in trying to reach out and address the different issues of workers in Southeast Asia?
Yeah. Actually, I think the biggest challenge for trade union is how the government, how the employers, how the people choose the model of development, which is the trade liberalization, which is the neoliberalism. Because in this way, they are concerned about the rising in GDP. They are like fighting for it, they're struggling for it. But actually, you need to see deeper than that. Okay, rising GDP, because that's what all the research about ASEAN is saying. After the integration, the rising in GDP is there. But you need to see that inequality or income gap also rising. There's a problem. There's a big problem here.
So the discourse on inequality is very much lacking when governments talk about economy.
Yeah.
They most often focus more on, the economic side. Economy.
GDP. The rising on GDP.
But to justify the government's perception on this is because the global world is changing. You have on the other side the US, China, and then of course now Russia is investing in Southeast Asia. Then of course you have EU and all other larger powers surrounding Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia itself, they have this pressure to somehow perform economically because they're supposed to be a single market.
Yes.
So I guess trying to find a balance between trying to impress economically in Southeast Asia, but at the same time trying to protect the workers that are producing this work. How do you actually try to find this balance and to ensure that you don't just focus too much on the economic side or the geopolitical side of Southeast Asia, but also on the people of Southeast Asia?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Of course, this is also what ASEAN leaders always saying, that ASEAN is people-centered and then we want the development to be inclusive. Yes, but what we can see, like I said, the GDP is rising, but also the inequality, income gap is also rising. Also the rising on the outsourcing and contract workers. Yeah, it happens. And then poor quality job is also rising as well in numbers. I think what we would like to request from the government and then from employers, we need to make like ASEAN doesn't compete with each other, like Indonesia, Vietnam, Myanmar, they're competing with the same manufacturing, they're competing to offer cheap labor, they're competing to offer like resources. Maybe we need to start to think about how ASEAN government can complement each other in terms of manufacture. That's also what integration means, I mean, to fulfill each other's role and then to find a greater prosperity to the region. So I think if the government can find focus on their industry, then the investors also cannot just like, I just choose to go to Indonesia compared to Malaysia in terms of manufacturing shoes, because Indonesia has better. So maybe Malaysia doesn't need to manufacture shoes. I don't think Malaysia is. This is just an example.
So you're suggesting countries become special? To specialize in one area.
Specialize in one area. Yes. Then it can make like better prosperity for workers, for the employers, for the government. So they don't compete each other. When they compete to each other, they don't have bargaining position, right? They will just like, okay, I will give you tax, employer, I will give you tax, I will give you tax heaven, I will give you cheap labor, You cannot compete like that.
So I guess who is going to specialize in batik?
Okay, that's quite sensitive.
Just kidding about it.
The reason one is Olympia, right?
But that's the reality of Southeast Asian. We have so many shared heritage.
Yes.
It's hard for country to be specialized in one thing. Maybe in areas relating to technology or infrastructure, maybe.
Yeah.
But
like manufacturing,
like manufacturing, consumer products,
automobiles, like
So you leave it to Malaysia to produce our proton, is that what you mean? So I'm not going to produce an Indonesian car anytime soon.
Well, I'm not sure that we have Indonesian cars. It was so long ago. Yeah, I mean, like for maybe like for the Vietnamese and Indonesia, they compete in motorcycle production. Maybe Indonesia can focus in this part. Maybe Vietnam can focus in that part. So they don't compete to each other. Yeah, they just like complementing each other. I think there's some research about it. It was shared by ICS from Singapore, I think. Yes, there's some research about it.
I guess focusing more on the key industry in terms of the specialization, then I think it would definitely create more synergy in all Southeast Asian countries.
Synergies, yes, that's a nice word to put it.
We'll take another one short break. When we return, we will discuss more with Marina, Christina on, of course, the topic of AEC as well as labor movement and labor mobility in this region.
Monday Morning Matters
Perspectives
from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene. You are back again with me, of course, on the Monday Morning Matters, and together with Marina, Christina, project coordinator of ASETUC, and let's talk about the way forward. Of course, you addressed earlier one of the area that we can do is specialization.
Yeah.
But what are the other challenges that we can address in order for the labor protection in Southeast Asia to move forward? I mean, I give example of Malaysia just to get parliamentarians and also government to agree on the minimum wage, which a lot of people are saying it's not even minimum wage.
Yeah.
It's more like bottom than minimum wage. It's so hard. And some more you want to get employers to jump into the bandwagon, and they have their own agenda to and interest to address too. So how can you create a negotiation process or a discussion process that is positive, that will be a win-win situation for all?
Yeah, what ASETUC has done now, actually, currently we are working on, we are proposing a lot of stuff. But now, recent one are, we are proposing an agenda for a social ASEAN. So its underlying principles are putting the people at first, enabling a life of dignity, fulfilling the decent work, fulfilling social protection. So we want ASEAN to hear what its people is saying. It should be not only elite projects, but it's also need to include people. And also we are now working with the LRCT from Thailand. So it's a law reform committee in Thailand. We are trying to promote this ASEAN standard and mechanism to protect the right of workers. So the idea is this ASEAN standard is to be adopted by all ASEAN member states, and it covers a lot of protection for workers. For example, freedom of association and bargaining, collective bargaining. And then what is more important is the ASEAN standard and mechanism to protect the rights of workers doesn't see or doesn't look at its workers' immigration status. So whether he is informal, formal, local, migrant, all are covered. So this is what we are trying to promote. And then we actually want post Vision 2015, we want ASEAN to include social dimension, to include labor dimension in every agreement they make. Because a lot of time when we wanted to talk to them, they will say this is not our area, we are only talking about the economic side, we don't talk about the labor. But that doesn't really the case, because whatever they make, whatever they agree on, a lot of time it affects workers first. I would like to remind everyone who's listening that in 2015, ASEAN has 321 million workforce.
That's a lot of
That's
people
a
to
lot
be
of
employed.
people. Yes, and mostly in Indonesia. Yes, a lot. So this half of the population in ASEAN will be affected by ASEAN economy integration. So I think we have the right to speak, we have the right to be involved, and I believe that in partnership we can tackle the challenges brought by the trade liberalization in ASEAN.
But I want to ask you, why do you think, I guess personally, your opinion, ASEAN do not really include the labor's perspective of it? Is it intentional, or is it they just maybe forget about it or forgotten about it?
Well, I think trade union are still perceived as
Anti-establishment?
no, I mean they perceive as a enemy, like
I see.
perceive as someone who will cause trouble.
So the trust issue between the government and the civil society, I guess in this case the trade unions,
Yes.
is still very low.
Yeah.
I guess also traditionally, when people talk about trade union, they will go back to history,
Yes.
In the early 20th century,
Okay.
where trade unions obviously are the forefronters when it comes to trying to fight either against the colonial power or against the establishment of
Yeah.
the day. So-
Actually, nothing wrong with that. Right?
there's nothing wrong with that, but I
Yes.
guess it kind of create this negative
Yes,
air or
exactly.
perception
Yeah,
in
yeah.
ASEAN.
Mhm.
How can we improve that? Like, I mean, you yourself saying that at ASETUC you want to engage meaningfully with
Yes,
governments
exactly, yeah.
and of course with employers as well. But how can we clear the air?
What we are trying to do since 2007 is actually to have social dialogue with them. We show them that we are not only here to demand this, demand that, but we want to contribute. That is why we also have a lot of publications, a lot of research, and like for example, we have occupational safety and health guidelines in retail sectors. So it actually helps government who still doesn't have or still looking for OSH guideline, OSH curriculum, so they can incorporate this easily to their occupational safety and health curriculum. So we want to contribute. So yeah, that's what we are trying to do until now, that we want to show that we have a positive dialogue and then we want to contribute. Yeah.
So what's your view on the AEC? Do you think AEC will somehow give more benefit or not to workers? I know it's a very subjective answer, because at the same time AEC would definitely open out markets in Southeast Asia, but would it jeopardize would it give negative impact to workers, especially workers from the lower end of the sector? Yeah.
Well, for workers, because workers also consumers, we will have more competitive price for products. So I think it will benefit workers as well somehow. But I think AEC, if we don't manage it rightly, managing meaning we need to have partnership. We need to talk, government, employers, business and trade union. We need to talk. We need to have a meaningful social dialogue. Because if not, then yes, the rising of outsourcing, contract workers, and then the lack of social protection, this will, impacted workers in bad way. So if we don't manage this will cause problem, and then the integration won't be sustainable. Yeah.
So I guess at the long run, what ASEAN should consider is the sustainability of the regional organization
Integration
and also the integration itself.
Yes.
Because if you look at European Union, which is one of the best model of regional integration, of course labor protection is very much embedded into the discourse of EU.
Yeah. They have regular engagement with what they call European Trade Union Council. They are even sitting in some of the councils. They are sitting in the they can give inputs to whatever government is negotiating. You can see the difference in ASEAN. We cannot have access to the draft on the instrument on the protection for migrant workers. Yeah, that's quite a pity.
So currently, when we talk about migrant workers, what is the statistic, if you can share? What is the kind of problems that they are facing right now? Because even I just want to say, even in Malaysia, when people talk about migrant workers, socially they are not really being accepted in the larger society. They are being seen as probably third-class citizens. They are not being treated as well as they ought to be. They work in the most dangerous and low paying and dirty jobs that the locals would not want. But is the situation the same across the board in Southeast Asia, where workers are being neglected, are being treated as commodity?
I think I can say the same. Yeah, you see, because of course the drivers of the migration mostly is economy. They want to find a better living, and also actually if we see history, we need to be honest. Actually, for example, Malaysia at that time didn't have enough resources. So they are like asking foreign workers to do this kind of jobs. But then also now we see Singapore is also like aging. They have aging society, so they also need foreign workers. So I think if we want to be honest, we need to see that foreign workers actually contribute to the national development and national economy. It's just how we perceive them is, they come to our country and then they need money and then they steal our jobs, things like that. So yeah, I think the situation is the same throughout ASEAN about what is happening with the migrant workers now.
So I guess that's it for our show today. Hopefully that there will be more meaningful discourse between the governments in Southeast Asia and also in ASEAN with the Workers' Trade Union, or to be more specific, ASETUC.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, Arlene.